Hey friend. So I want to talk about something that I've been talking to a lot of my friends and my family about lately as I'm learning more and more about the mind-body connection. I'm really starting to make some realizations that have simplified things for me, and I want to share them with you. So our mind-body connection really is this tool that we were not taught how to use because our parents didn't know how to use it, their parents didn't know how to use it. We've become really divorced from how the mind and the body really work together. And honestly, even though we talk about it more and more in our dominant culture than we ever have, I think we are still missing the mark on how absolutely brilliant this system is and how it is constantly in real time giving us very honest feedback about our thought patterns. So in the simplest of terms, what I have to say is if you feel good, go with it. And if it feels bad, then it's a lie, it's false, and the thought needs to be reworked in some way. One of the trickiest spots that we find ourselves in our world is when we quote unquote feel bad for other people, other places, or especially animals can be one of the trickiest ones for us to really think about correctly. So you're watching the news comes on, it's talking about a particular place in the world and the horrors that are going on there, and you immediately find yourself feeling bad for them, right? And we call this by several different names. Sometimes it can be empathy, and it's whatever, it doesn't really matter. The trick is here is that we're misinterpreting that information. So we find ourselves in this situation, something happens in our 3D outer reality world that produces a thought in us where we judge what we're seeing and then we project onto it, right? So like I said, we've got this incredible system that is constantly giving us feedback about the quality of our thoughts, and I think this next statement is incredibly important. Feelings aren't good, bad, right, or wrong. They're just indicative of the quality of the thought that preceded them. So you think a thought, and then immediately your body reacts to that thought and tells you whether the thought is true or false. So anytime you're feeling bad, you know that what you're judging isn't true. 100% of the time, every time. But this gets really tricky because culturally we're taught that it is correct to feel bad for people, it's correct to feel bad for animals, it's correct to feel bad for places, and in fact, we should maybe even feel guilty if we don't, because that might mean something about us, right? If we lack empathy in some way. And now I'm not in any way suggesting that we should not have compassion, but what I am suggesting is that in training myself to whatever I'm seeing and vibrating at that level is not how it was meant to be used, this system. I should be able to hold my focus and not entrain to whatever you're going through, because that is actually more helpful for me and for you and the place or the animal or whatever. And this can be really tricky because what I am actually suggesting is that when we think we're being helpful, when we feel bad for people, we are not being helpful. So it's a lot of information, but it can be applied to any scenario. If you think a thought and the thought feels good, it's true. And if you think a thought and the thought feels bad, it is missing the mark. It is not 100% true. There might be a tiny bit of truth to it, but it is not. And you'll sort of know by the varying degrees of intensity that are within your body, right? How true it is. If there's a little bit of truth to it, maybe it feels more neutral than it does but we're talking sensations that flash inside the body so quickly we miss them half the time. Because again, we were not trained to do this. So I know that I'm sort of talking for a long time about this, but I'm so passionate that we get this right. This is very important to me because it has changed my life. How I show up and how I project and judge out into the world has changed completely. And it's really caused me to do all of this internal work so that I can sit with my own discomfort, because I recognize that I am producing my own discomfort by thinking shitty thoughts, and that I am the only one that can clean that up. So anytime we're saying this, like, I'm so sorry for you that you're going through that. I feel so bad for X, Y, and Z. We really sort of want to, as often as possible, catch those thoughts and really like strike them from the record. I know that sounds dramatic, but we really want to cut through that, because our words are so incredibly powerful. Our thoughts are so creative. And that if we really understood how creative we are, we would be much more mindful of what we think and what we say. And this is one of the biggies that just we feel like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. Like, it can just fall out of my mouth, right? But it is a really big deal, because it's informing everything. So 9 times out of 10, if we're seeing something in our outer world and we feel bad about it, we are judging it. We are projecting onto it what its experience is. And that's just not our job. And so our body will immediately feel bad. 100% of the time, your body is going to feel bad when you think this way and you allow, because your body is trying to tell your mind, not that thought, change that thought, tweak that thought, sift through that thought, something like that. But what we do in this moment, instead of hitting the pause button, and we really do have to slow things down to be able to change our way of thinking, is we misinterpret that bad feeling. And it's so funny. We say it out loud. I'm like, oh my God, I feel so bad for them. And that's the moment where we're supposed to catch it. That's the moment where the mind-body connection jumps in and says, nope, you are thinking about that incorrectly. So, but we feel like the bad feeling confirms our thought, right? I'm seeing bad thing. I feel bad inside. We are in agreement that this is bad. And that's just not it. It is not it. So much diligence needs to go into watching our thoughts and recognizing that within a split second, we can feel a feel. And we're talking about like 1/10 of a second, maybe smaller, that these things happen, these reactions happen inside of our body. And often we are on autopilot because we've been thinking the same way our whole lives. Everyone around us talks about feeling bad for other people. So we've really grown into this kind of communal aspect of walking around feeling bad for everybody. And it just isn't serving a purpose. So cheers. It's my favorite topic.